It's now time for the Billy C. Show, part of the BillyCBoxing.com network.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C Show. Good morning, good day, good evening, whenever you're watching, whenever you're listening. I hope you're doing okay today. Today's show is being brought to us in part by, you guessed it, my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold. And you can get a copy of this book right now while you're watching or listening to this very show. Just visit Amazon.com or drop me an email, bill@BillyCBoxing.com, and I'll hook you up with a signed book. Also, BarnesandNoble.com has it too, I think. Anyway, today's show is also being brought to us in part by BillyCBoxing.com. Check it out, BillyCBoxing.com. We keep any news and updates on the show on that page, plus all the latest boxing news and tidbits are up there. And Dax Khan has a column that he updates frequently, so check that out. All right, today's show, I am going to be breaking down Anthony Joshua. Hey, Joshua. No, I'm going to be breaking down Anthony Joshua and the Daniel Dubois fight. I'll be giving you my prediction. Plus, I'm going to take a look at the heavyweight divisional rankings as of today and my thoughts on that. I'm going to throw you guys a little recap of my induction into the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame this past weekend. Had a great time. I got some listener emails. I got some the latest boxing news to talk to you about, some rumors. Who knows what's else? But before I start talking about the fights from this past weekend, I mentioned the BillyCBoxing.com website. Well, I don't know. For any of you longtime listeners, you might know the story behind this banner that's behind me. I had gotten this email. I don't know. Really, I didn't get a name of who it was from, but it was from some kind of cleaning company, and like a cleaning, not like cleaning houses, but like some kind of product that cleans. And they were basically selling this cleaning product, and they said that they watched the show, and they have a cleaning product that would make my banner look shiny, bright white. And they were trying to sell me an easy-to-use spray bottle for $19.95. Well, if you don't know the story behind this banner, my man Brooklyn Mike, a friend of mine who gave his 2 cents on this show a while back, and anyway, he worked on the Law and Order set. He's an actor; he does a lot of stuff, but he worked frequently on the Law and Order sets. And one day he gave me a call, and he said, "Hey, Billy C, we're shooting this show, and the backdrop is a boxing gym. And do you have a banner or something? I'll see if I can get it on the show." So I had a guy make up this banner and overnight it to him, and he had it on the show. And he calls me back and he said, "Look, we got it in the shots. You're going to be able to see it on the episode." He said, "But we had to stop shooting because it was so bright. Because it was brand new. We had never used it for anything. And it was so bright, it was basically the camera was focusing on it, and he wanted it as a background, like as a backdrop, just a prop." And it ended up, stealing the show, kind of. So what ended up happening was they had to take it in the makeup area, and they applied some stuff on it to make it look old. And I left it like that because I thought it was cool. And here I got somebody asking me if I want to clean it. And by the way, if you've never seen the episode, it was Law and Order Inhumane Society was the episode, and it was starring, Ralph Macchio. But give a shout out to Jesus and my girl Love It, who's in the chat room right now. If you're watching or listening on another platform, we are simultaneously broadcasting on several different platforms. Come on over to the YouTube chat room and give us your thoughts. All right. I told you guys I wasn't going to buy it, and I didn't. But Canelo Alvarez basically put on a show against Edgar Berlanga to improve to 62-2 with a couple of draws, 39 knockouts. Berlanga loses the first time in his career. He drops to 22-1. I will say this. Canelo dropped Berlanga. I watched the fight the next day, okay? Canelo dropped Berlanga, and he got back up. And for the most part, and prior to that, it looked like he was trying to outbox Canelo. But once he got dropped, he reverted back to his old style, which is trying to, knock his opponent out. And it was an entertaining fight. I mean, he didn't stand a chance against Canelo, but it was entertaining. The scores were 117, 110, 118, 109 twice. And Canelo failed to get a stoppage for his fifth consecutive fight. The other fights on the card, Ursulandi Lara improved to 31-3 with 3 draws and 19 knockouts when he fought Danny Garcia. And his middleweight belt, the WBA middleweight belt, was on the line for this fight. First of all, I don't even know how. Listen, I'm going to be talking about the rankings here in a little bit when I start breaking down the heavyweight fight for this weekend. But the WBA, all right, out of the 4 major sanctioning bodies, you got WBC, WBA, IBF, WBO. I like to throw in the IBO as well for 5 because I happen to like the IBO. I like the way they do things. But the WBA has to be the least valuable one. I mean, with all the BS, they got the regular champion, they got the super champion, they got the interim champion, they got the champion in recess, they got the champion wearing sneakers, they got the champion wearing no sneakers. I mean, it's such a crock of shit. I can't stand it. It's hard to follow the WBA's titles, and all they want is the sanctioning fees. Give a shout out to Joel, my man Joel, longtime listener, popping in the chat room. But number one, I don't know how they could possibly even make Garcia able to fight for this title, right? But with all that said, listen, I got some inside scoop on this fight. Garcia was getting a payday. It was kind of like, let's not hurt each other. And you know what? If you watch the fight, I only watched the highlights of that particular fight. That's what it looked like. And then all of a sudden, Garcia decides he's had enough in the corner and they wave it off. I mean, look, no disrespect to Danny Garcia. The only thing that pisses me off about Danny Garcia, and I was telling, I'm going to get to it. I was talking about it this past weekend at the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame ceremony thing. When he was real young, I think he had, less than a half a dozen fights. He was on this show. He was on the show a few times, and I made him promise that when he became a world champion and all rich and famous, that he'd come back, and he blew me off, But the truth of the matter is, he has nothing left to prove. He had a great career, and he's financially stable. They threw him. The word on the curb that I heard was they threw him this fight. The outcome was exactly what it was, and it was helping Ursulandi Lara to get another win against a named guy. He was able to get a title defense, and they're trying to set him up for a big money fight. It all boils down to one thing. The PBC sucks. Whoever spends money on PBC fighters and their pay-per-views, if they're not fighting another fighter with another promotional company, you're getting robbed. I mean, let's face it. These guys they're jerking you around. It's a sham. Big Al Heyman is a scam artist, and so is the PBC. Just saying. There was a entertaining fight when Khalid Plant stopped Trevor McCumbee to improve to 23-2 with 14 knockouts. McCumbee loses for the first time, 28-1, 21 knockouts. It was for a interim WBA belt, It is what it is. So congratulations to Plant. We'll see what happens there. Of course, after the fight, everybody's asking Canelo, are you going to fight Crawford? He says no comment. Now, some more news, some more word in the curb that I have heard is that he is starting to soften up a little on this fight. Okay, and I think it makes sense for Canelo. Number one, he's going to make a boatload of cash. I mean, His Excellency is going to throw some money at him. I do know that he's got his limit, and he had initially turned down a fight against Crawford in Saudi Arabia, but I think he's softening up, and I think the reason he's softening up is what's left out there for him. Is he going to, just start going through the super middleweights? I mean, I don't really think that he's going to be a light heavyweight champion. I mean, yes, he was once before. I think he also deep down wants to fight Bivol. I think he's haunted by that loss. And I think he's waiting to see the outcome of the great fight that's scheduled soon against Bivol and Artur Beterbiev. I'm looking forward to that fight. We'll see what unravels. I mean, if Beterbiev wins that fight, which I'm leaning towards, I think that you might see Canelo Bivol. But don't be shocked if you see Canelo Crawford. Now, Crawford, and it would be in May, right? I mean, if he does it in Vegas, if he does it in Saudi Arabia, who knows? But then Crawford gets a little older, right? I mean, you're talking another 9 months from now, right? 9, 10 months, whatever. But they asked Crawford about the fight, and he said, "Of course, I'd beat Canelo." The truth of the matter is I do think that Crawford would beat Canelo Alvarez. I really do, not by knockout, but I think he would squeak out and steal a decision. Speaking of stealing, I know half of you are gonna, or maybe more than half of you are gonna disagree with me, but Shakur Stevenson, he's regarded as a fighter with immense skill and everything, but Klitschko had a lot of skill too. Vitaly Klitschko and Vladimir Klitschko, but I'm referring to Vladimir here. He had a lot of skill, but one of the problems, and like I mentioned to my man Augie at the Hall of Fame, you could make the argument that for a decade, Vladimir Klitschko never lost a round. The problem is he was a boring fighter, and he may not be getting the recognition that he deserves for his dominance in the heavyweight division during his reign. But one of the reasons why is because of his lack of excitement. And I think that, fighters that are exciting, it sticks in the back of your mind. I mean, Boom Boom Mancini, I loved to watch Boom Boom Mancini. Exciting fighter. He's not a super all-time great. I mean, somewhere along the list he is. But he was just extremely exciting, Klitschko wasn't, and neither is Stevenson. Well, now all of a sudden he has hand surgery, and he's not going to be fighting Joe Cordina October 12th, which in my opinion was kind of an easy fight. Cordina was moving up in weight, and it was a typical one of these, everything's in favor of Stevenson, and that's what I really hate about boxing. But Lovett's in here. She's congratulating me on the New York State induction. Look, speaking of which, great segue. Here's the belt. They awarded me a belt. I had a great time, and I want to thank everybody that showed up there. As a matter of fact, I had a really good time with Augie from Riverhead and his son Augie, and we were able to. My Jeremy C, the infamous Jeremy C, was supposed to join me, but he had some surgery and he wasn't able to. And at the last minute, he couldn't make it. And my daughter stepped up, and we had a really good time. And I got to meet Augie, and here's a shot of my man Augie and his son Augie Jr. and that bald-headed, fat, ugly Italian guy. Well, that's me in a suit. So I got to meet him, and I really appreciated those guys coming. And how did this picture get in here? Somebody's playing around with my stuff. I mean, yeah, okay, that's me holding a belt. But yeah, back to Augie. Yeah, Augie and his son. We talked boxing for a while in between courses, and then listen. We talked about this up and coming kid. My man, Coach, it was always saying, and we talked about him. He won some championships in I believe 2 different weight classes, or definitely 2 different tournaments. Now his name is Travis Smith, and here's me with Travis right now. What a great kid! And all I can say is keep an eye on him. Now, if you recall, Joe Smith, right? Joe Smith Jr. Well, I met Travis and his pops, Joe Smith Sr., and Joe Smith Jr. Is Travis's brother. So, there's obviously some talent in those genes. And if you notice, he's got a Mickey Ward jacket on, and he had just met Mickey Ward. Mickey Ward was a great fighter, and he did me some favors in the past. But what a great kid, Travis. I really appreciated meeting you, and I wish I had some more time to chat with you, and hopefully we'll get to see each other again. But anyway, we had a great time there, and one of the things that Augie Jr. asked me, he says, Bill, what's the best fight you were ringside for? And I said, oh, the best live fight, and I mentioned Tommy Hearns and Marvin Hagler. He said, no. He wants to know what the best ringside fight was, and I couldn't think of it, and we rattled off. We went back and forth about some fights and stuff, and honestly, Augie, you kept me up because I was thinking, what is the best fight? I mean, I saw so many. I mean, I had the luxury of seeing some great fighters live. Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield, Vinny Paz. I mean, I loved watching Vinny. Hector Camacho, Roy Jones Jr., Tito Trinidad. I actually saw them fight each other at Madison Square Garden. Andrew Galata, which was, I saw him in a smaller venue. It was pretty cool to see him fight. Sugar Shane, Daniel Jacobs, Mickey Ward, Lennox Lewis, Arturo Gotti, many, many more fighters that I got to see live ringside, which I'm very thankful for. But, the best fights really always seem to be on the smaller shows, the club shows where you have some up and coming fighters, trying to make a name for themselves. These 4-round fights or 6-round fights in any weight class, and it's just a beautiful fight, but you can't remember the guys' names, because whether they just didn't continue or whatever the case was. So, I gotta cry. I don't know. I'm old. I had a couple of scotches. It's been 30 some odd years. Plus before that, before I was in the business, I still was a boxing fan, so, but I finally came up, and I came up with a list of my top 3 just to appease Augie Jr., okay? Because I appreciate these guys. When I got to meet them, they came from Riverhead to see my induction, which I was so thankful for, as was Travis and some other people there that I got to meet, and hopefully we'll be doing some things together. But I came up with 3, and these are the 3 most exciting. So what I'm basing this on, based on our conversation, it would be the criteria that I used to pick these fights were based on the fight itself. Okay. The excitement leading up to the fight, and of course the fight, and the energy that the fight created in the crowd. All right. And these are the 3 that I came up with, and then I'll break down the big fights for this weekend. On April 28th, 2007, at the Foxwoods Casino in Connecticut, I watched Juan Baby Bull Diaz challenge Acilio Freitas for his WBO World Lightweight title. The Baby Bull won this fight by an 8th round stoppage when Freitas couldn't continue. The excitement at this fight. Now, first of all, I was right ringside. All right. So I happen to have been sitting next to the parents of Baby Bull Diaz. But the crowd was electric. And I don't know if you've seen this fight, but I mean, this was an exciting fight. I mean, and this isn't in order. I'm just giving them to you in the date order. Okay. So that's one of them. The second one also took place at Foxwoods, April 25th, 2009. And this featured former world middleweight champion Jermaine Taylor challenging Carl Froch for his WBC World Super Middleweight title. And Jermaine Taylor started out on this fight like a gangbuster. I mean, he had Froch on the canvas in the third round. And then all of a sudden, Froch started coming on. And, there was a huge contingent of British fans there from the UK. As a matter of fact, one of the guys that was involved with this show, Thomas Newman, was a UK correspondent. He was there, and he ended up with better seats than we had, and I met Dax Khan there. That was when Dax and I got together, and he was sitting next to me, and we started our relationship with an argument over Lennox Lewis, but that's a whole nother story. But what an exciting fight. Froch ended up putting Jermaine Taylor down and out in the 12th and final round to retain his belt. It was an exciting fight. That's the second one I want to mention. And the third one took place November 2nd in 2019 at the MGM in Las Vegas. And that's when world middleweight champion Saul Canelo Alvarez challenged the WBO light heavyweight champion at the time, Sergey Kovalev, for his title. Canelo won by an 11th round knockout. It was a devastating body shot. This fight, okay, the excitement leading up to this fight. I mean, if you were there, you'll know what I mean. Alex Papali and I were there for that fight. And I mean, Canelo has Mexican bands playing, and there were multiple broadcasts. So, where I was, I could see different broadcast crews doing their show. And it was great. And the fact that, Kovalev, the crusher, and Canelo won the fight, that was an exciting ringside fight. So those three are the ones that I would mention. And I wish I would have had the answers for Augie Squared. I'll call him Augie Squared because they're both named Augie when they asked me, So speaking of rumors, how about Mike Tyson's recent comments on Floyd Mayweather and all the BS talk that surrounds him about being the best ever? Which drives me crazy because you see something on social media all the time about it. And I'm convinced that, Mayweather's team is putting this stuff out to keep him relevant, which he's not. But Mike Tyson alluded to the fact that Floyd cherry-picked his opponents, but he said, and I quote, when he was asked about it, he says, listen, Sugar Ray Robinson and Mike Tyson, you could say what you want about Mike Tyson. I mean, now everyone loves him. I loved him when he was fighting. But the man is a historian with the sport. He knows the sport, and he knows and appreciates the historical aspect of the fight game. And Mike Tyson said, listen, Sugar Ray Robinson had 40 fights. Then he lost one. Then he had a 78-fight winning streak. 40, lost one. Then he won 78 fights in a row. He says, God damn, Mayweather is not the greatest of all time. I enjoyed watching Pacquiao more. And I'll stop there for a second. I agree with everything that Mike Tyson just said. I mean, number one, I believe that Sugar Ray Robinson is the greatest fighter ever. Hammer and Hank has to be up there too. So I mean, there's a lot of great fighters that were substantially better than Floyd Mayweather, and they challenged themselves against top opposition, and they fought all comers, something that Floyd did not do. And he says, And I too enjoyed watching Manny Pacquiao more because of the excitement factor. I mentioned that just before about Klitschko. Yes, Mayweather won. Yes, he won all those fights, but he wasn't exciting. I mean, how many fights really stick out in your head? The ones that stick out in my head are the ones that you could have said he might have lost. Oscar De La Hoya and the first Maidana fight. I mean, come on. But Tyson goes on to say Julio Cesar Chavez Sr., he's referring to, was 89-0 before he lost his first fight. Don't tell me about him. You're, meaning Floyd, you're the greatest fighter with a 50-0 record. You're great, no doubt about it. But 50-0, Chavez had 90. Chavez was fighting 8 times a year against whoever was in the rankings. He wasn't picking. It was whoever you want. Come on. Now the argument, and I applaud Mike Tyson for saying that. Um, you know, the truth of the matter is that anytime you bring that up, the 90-0, 89-0 fights, the Floyd Mayweather fans will always mention, oh well, he was fighting some Tijuana taxi cab drivers and this and that. Yeah, I mean, those fighters of yesteryear that fought, 80, 90, 100, 150, 180, 200 fights when you go back to guys like Sugar Ray Robinson. Look, we talked about this last week. They were fighting, nothing. They weren't all knockout, drag out, super top fights, but they fought so frequently, and they still had at least a half a dozen or 5 at least minimal of high end fights per year. Now you're giving a Fighter of the Year award to a fighter who has 4 fights, and they don't even really look at the fighters. It's just as long as they're busy. But anyway, fights this weekend. You got Saturday coming from Wembley Stadium. The main event, Anthony Joshua is challenging Daniel Dubois for his IBF title. And also on that card, Tyler Denny, the European middleweight champion, is taking on Hamaz Shiraz, who's a pretty exciting fighter. All these fights on this card, every one of them are very good fights. They're not layups, and they're all going to be entertaining. I guarantee it. But Joshua Buatsi and his Willie Hutchinson, they're going to be fighting for a vacant WBO light heavyweight title. Anthony Kakachi is the current IBF and IBO super featherweight title. He's fighting Josh Warrington. Ishmael Davis, a middleweight, is taking on Josh Kelly, and Mark Chamberlain is taking on Josh Padley in the lightweight division. Coverage starts on DAZN at 10:30 a.m. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that, in my opinion. Now, here's a funny thing. Now, the IBF, right? Their champion, Anthony Kakachi, they won't sanction Warrington for the title. So unless that's changed, I'm not too keen on them not letting him fight for the title. It should be a voluntary defense, but they gave a long, drawn out explanation why. I do believe the IBO title is still on, and I will say this, Warrington's coming off 2 losses. However, he's a former IBF world title champion. He was a featherweight champ. He beat Kiko Martinez via 7th round stoppage in March of 2022. He lost his title in a close fight to Luis Alberto Lopez, a majority decision, in December of that year. And then in his last fight, he lost via a 7th round stoppage to Lee Wood in October of last year. I get it. I understand that, he's coming off basically 2 losses. But I think this fight should have been sanctioned. I tell you right now, I disagree with that. I think it's ridiculous about some of these sanctioning bodies. and it's silly in my opinion. All right, so the main event this weekend on that card is Anthony Joshua going up against Daniel Dubois for Daniel Dubois' title, which you recall was vacated because they were about to strip Usyk of the title because he wouldn't fight Daniel Dubois. So he vacated the title. So now Anthony Joshua has another shot at the title. Now, before I get into it, I want you to take a look at, I should have got the image. I should have got a graphic here for you. In the WBC, now everybody regards the WBC as the top sanctioning body, and I'm not going to disagree with that, but I do question, like if you saw Mauricio Suleiman's, um, you know, he puts a column out, he said, great boxing card when he's referring to Canelo. Well, he's just referring to Canelo, but he says the great boxing card. I'm getting a fact check here that Dubois has a 30% chance of beating Joshua. I think his knockout power gives him a better chance than that, in my opinion. But anyway, my thought is when I look at the WBC, Usyk's the champ, and the way they have their rankings, they have Tyson Fury number 1, Ajit KBL number 2, Martin Bakole number 3, Zhilei Zhang number 4, Efe Ajagba at number 5, Bakir Jalolov at number 6, Frank Sanchez at number 7, Fabio Wardley at number 8, Islamberg Makhmudov at number 9, Philip Hrgovic at number 10, Luis Ortiz, he's at number 11. I think he just turned 72. He did have a fight not too long ago, so I guess he's still in the mix. Otto Wallen at 12, Deontay Wilder 13, Andy Ruiz at 14, Jared Anderson at 15. I'm not going to criticize those rankings. My only question is Luis Ortiz at number 11, but I guess for his whole body of work maintains him in the top 12. When you look at the laughing stock of the sanctioning bodies, and that would be the WBA. And by the way, the WBC has one champ, Usyk. The WBA has two champs. They have Usyk as their super champion, and then they have Manuel Char. Remember him? He's still the regular WBA world heavyweight champ. When was the last time he friggin' fought? I mean, it's a joke. The WBA is a freaking joke. And here's their rankings. Number 1, Martin Bakole. Number 2, Tyson Fury. Number 3, Michael Hunter. Number 4, Lenier Piro. Number 5, Mike Perez. Number 6, Ajit KBL. Number 7, Zhang. Number 8, Cuba Pulov. Number 9, Fabio Wardley. Number 10, Cassius Chaney. Number 11, here's another number 11, Luis Ortiz. Derek Chisora, number 12. Jarrell Miller, number 13. Jonathan Goodry, number 14. And Ivan Daicho at number 15. Martin Bakole had a great fight in his last fight. Is he number 1? He's above Tyson Fury. Michael Hunter, he beat Martin Bakole years ago. He's ranked number 3. I mean, come on. You look at the IBF. You got Danny Dubois as a champ. Nobody's ranked for number 1 and number 2. This kills me that they don't. So what are they doing? Are they waiting for the paychecks? Are they waiting for the money? I mean, like, what can you put in this hand to write your fighter's name in this slot? Is that what they're waiting for? Because, wouldn't you just move the number 3 guy up to number 2 and the number 4 guy? I mean, number 1 and the number 4 guy and the number 2. I mean, doesn't that make sense? So their claim, they don't have a number 1 and number 2 ranked fighter. But number 3 is Anthony Joshua. Number 4 is KBL. Number 5 is Martin Bakole. Number 6 is Zhang. 7 is Sanchez. 8 is Ajagba. Number 9 is Hrgovic. Number 10 is Derek Chisora. Number 11 is Otto Wallen. Fabio Wardley, number 12. Jared Anderson, number 13. Guido Vanelio. I like this Italian kid. He looked good in his last fight. And Justice Hunai. Justice Hunai should not be in the rankings. He barely won his last fight. and he should not be a top 15 anybody, but that's IBF. And finally, WBO, they too have two champions, Usyk as the main champ, Joseph Parker as an interim champ. The best top five, I think, of these four sanctioning bodies are right now Anthony Joshua, number one, Tyson Fury, number two, Zhilei Zhang, number three, Bakoli, number four, KBL, number five. Then they have Hunai, Moses Atama, have never seen him fight, Fabio Wardley, Effie Ajagba, Hrgovic, Jared Anderson, Nelson Heisa, never saw him fight, Jermaine Franklin, Derek Chisora, and Jakolov, rounding out their top 15. I took it a step further, and I got the ESPN's top 10. And to be honest with you, I like ESPN. I very rarely do I agree with ESPN and their boxing because whatever. But I like their top 10. They don't necessarily rank a champion because there's so many belts, right? So they have Usyk at number one, Tyson Fury at number two. I think that that's correct. You got, the two so-called champions. Usyk won. They got a rematch. Tyson never lost to anybody else except for Usyk. So I think that that's right, number one and two. Number three, Anthony Joshua. I think that's right. I think Anthony Joshua is the third best heavyweight out there. Joseph Parker, number four. Zhang, number five. Daniel Dubois, number six. I might have moved Daniel Dubois up. Bakoli, number seven. KBL, number eight. Jarrell Miller, number nine. And Baby Miller, I was never a big fan, but I've gained some respect for him, especially in his last two fights. One a win, one a loss. He's got a chin, and as fat as he is, he looks like he's a donut away from 500 pounds. The truth of the matter is he comes on strong in the second half of the fights. And they have Andy Ruiz Jr. at number 10. I like those top 10. I think they're legit. And finally, I'll throw you the ring ratings. The champion is Usyk. And then you got Tyson Fury, number one. Anthony Joshua, number two. Joseph Parker, number three. Zhang, number four. KBL, number five. Daniel Dubois, number six. Bakoli, number seven. Hrgovic, number eight. And Ajagba, number nine. They also have Justice Hunai at number 10. I just don't think he should be there. So that's the way it is. And word on the curb, boys and girls, is that His Excellency is in negotiations for the Ring magazine right now. I wonder what that means for the Ring. But all right, the main event Saturday night has my man John Muskiunas. And I mentioned you, John, and you and Kenny. I mentioned you with my speech. So I appreciate all of the work we've done together. And I mentioned all the people that made this show. But John and Carl King and Kenny, and of course the late great Sal Rocky Senecola, all got a mention in my speech that I did, as well as all the contributors on the show: Scotty Krause, of course, Dax Khan, Alex Papali, all of them. I'm going blank now, but Emily Harney, Dave Wilcox, and the list goes on and on. So if I'm forgetting you now on this show, don't worry. I wrote them all down. Everyone that did anything, I wrote all down, except for anybody that's so political against the right. And I don't mind if you're on the left, but if you're so biased that and I doubt he's listening, but he's not on my list. And but anyway, all right. So this fight between Daniel Dubois and Anthony Joshua. Daniel Dubois is the IBF world champion. He's got a record of 21 wins, 2 losses, 20 of his wins coming by knockout, and both his losses coming by knockout. He lost the ninth round stoppage to Usyk in August of 23, and he lost a 10th round fight to Joe Joyce in November of 2020, which is fascinating when you think about it. Joe Joyce is so slow and methodical and leaves his chin wide open. And if you've been watching Daniel Dubois, since then, you say to yourself, how the hell could he have been beaten by by Joe Joyce. And no disrespect to Joe Joyce, he's got a thunderous punch, but he's slow as molasses, But in any event, the computer ranks Danny Dubois at number 5. He's had a total of 23 fights in his career, 90 rounds, 72 rounds less than AJ, by the way. But he does hold a higher knockout ratio at 95.24. He He's 27 years old, 7 years younger than AJ, 6'5", 1 inch shorter, so the height isn't going to be that much. But the reach, 78-inch reach, is 4 inches. He's given up to Anthony Joshua. The thing about Daniel Dubois is he's been extremely active, and the kid is getting better and better. I personally, I've said it before in this show, and I'll say it again. I feel they rushed Daniel Dubois, and I think he's coming into his own. So should he lose this fight tomorrow or Saturday, I should say, I don't think it's going to kill his career. And thank God he's in the UK because they know boxing. The UK boxing fans know that a fighter, after he loses a fight or 2 or 3 or even 5, doesn't mean their career is over like the non-knowledgeable fans here in the U.S. And don't get me wrong, I'm not referring to all of the boxing fans in the U.S. of A., because some, specifically the ones that watch this show, understand, how boxing works, and it's not a sin to lose a fight. But his last 2 fights, in my opinion, were the best wins of his career. He had an 8th round stoppage over, ranked across the board from everybody. I just did the rankings, Filip Hrgovic in June of this year. And he also had a 10th round stoppage over Jarrell Baby Miller in the 10th and final round in December. So if you look at that right now, he fought at the end of last year. He already fought in June, and he's fighting again this weekend. So the kid's got 3 fights in this year. And if you look through his record, that seemed to be the case. He fought frequently. He also had a win over Trevor Bryan, who was a Don King guy. Here we are talking about John Muscunas, but Trevor Bryan doesn't like to train, but I will give him the credit for beating him. He did have some other names on his resume, like Kevin Johnson, Razvan Kajanu, to name a couple. Nathan Gorman was undefeated when he fought him. Ricardo Sniders was also only 1 loss. So, I mean, Daniel Dubois has had some impressive wins throughout his career. Now he steps in the ring with Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua's 28 wins, 25 coming by knockout, and 3 losses in which he was stopped once. 2 of the 3 losses was his 2 fights against Usyk, and his 3rd loss and his knockout loss came in the hands of Andy Ruiz Jr. He is ranked number 2 in the world, and this is what got me going on the rankings, because the IBF has him at number 3. The WBO has him at number 1, and the WBC and the scum WBA, the garbage sanctioning body of the WBA, doesn't even have him ranked. How do you not rank Anthony Joshua? I mean, whether you like him or not, he's got to be in the top 10 rankings, and I understand that Dubois isn't because he's got a belt. But Anthony Joshua doesn't have a belt right now, and he should be ranked in all the sanctioning bodies. Like I just gave you the Ring ratings and also ESPN's ratings, and he's ranked on both of those high, which he should be. He's got 162 rounds as a pro of his 31 fights, and 72 more than Dubois, like I mentioned. Excuse me. He's got a less than 90% knockout ratio. He's 34 years old, 7 years older. He's got an inch height advantage at 6'6", and he's got 82-inch reach, which is 4-inch advantage. Look, when you look at this guy, he's been fighting top opposition for the last 9 years. If you look through his resume, Francis Ngannou was his last fight. He beat Otto Wall and Robert Helenas. he lost the 2 fights to Usyk, but he's got a win over Pulev, and he avenged his loss over Andy Ruiz. He beat Alexander Povetkin. He beat Joseph Parker. And that fight that I thought that Klitschko's head was going to end up in the 3rd row, one of the most devastating uppercuts I've ever seen thrown and landed in 2017. He's also got wins over Eric Molina, Dominic Brazil, Charles Martin, who he won the title from, the IBF title, Dillian White, Gary Cornish was undefeated. I mean, look, for the last 9 years, he's been fighting, really good opposition. And, in prior to all those names I just read, his last 2 so-called easy fights, all right, so-called easy, November 22nd, 2014, when he stopped Michael Sproat in the 1st round, and then Jason Gavin. My man John Moskunis is in the chat room right now, and I mean, we both had the pleasure of having Jason Gavin on some cards that we worked on. And I called the fight. He was a producer of it. And Jason Gavin was such a character. I love the kid, a gatekeeper. So I mean, he's got stoppage wins over those 2 guys. Now, putting these 2 in the ring together, Anthony Joshua to me, I thought was the best heavyweight. I think that when he lost his fights, he was, I don't know whether he wasn't with the right guy or his approach. I mean, he was always in good shape, but maybe he wasn't. His approach to the actual fight might have not been there. But nobody can deny his skill set. His weakness, his chinny chin chin. Okay. But he's displayed in his last couple of fights. He has taken some hellacious shots that he has not gone down. The Ngannou fight is a tough one to look at. I give a lot of credit to him in that fight. Now, because Ngannou's punching power, and he totally destroyed him. His boxing skill, he's got great reach. He's got very powerful, quick 1-2. He leads with his left and he comes back with the right. He's going to step in the ring with Daniel Dubois. Daniel Dubois takes much too many shots. He takes way too many punches. Even in his last fight that he won, he took some hellacious shots. Now, he was criticized for having a weak chin too, and he's proven that his chin maybe isn't so weak. I think it was a lack of experience with him. But the way this fight's going to go, in my opinion, I'm picking Anthony Joshua to win this fight. I think it's going to be an entertaining fight, but the weaknesses that Dubois has, specifically his defensive skills, he leaves himself open. The reach advantage is going to be very much in Anthony Joshua's favor, not only physically, the 4 inches, but he's going to utilize it. He's got great boxing footwork. And, the knock on Joshua is he too drops his hand sometimes, especially when his jab is being thrown. So I'm expecting Daniel Dubois to try and counterpunch him if he can avoid that first jab and just step a little bit to the side or move his head just enough to avoid the right that's going to be coming right behind it at some point, because AJ, really picks his shots. He'll jab you, and all of a sudden, bam, a right hand comes. If Daniel Dubois can somehow time that, if he can withstand a few, he's got a knockout puncher's chance. But I'm picking Anthony Joshua in this fight, and I'm picking Anthony Joshua to win by knockout. And I think that it's going to set up. Now, again, I don't want people to think that should be the end of Daniel Dubois. He's young enough, and I believe that he's got enough skill that he will be back. But I believe that Anthony Joshua is going to win this fight. And I also believe that Tyson Fury is going to avenge his loss against Usyk. Now, whether they have a third fight or not, I don't know. But I think that should Tyson Fury beat Usyk, it's going to set up the biggest fight ever in England that I prayed to my Lord Jesus Christ that I could somehow be ringside for that fight, because the energy between a Joshua and Tyson Fury fight, I can't even imagine how it would be. But that would be the biggest fight in the history of boxing, in my opinion, especially over in England. So I would love that fight. Now, if that fight doesn't materialize, should Usyk win? I don't know if Usyk's going to stick around the heavyweight division should he beat Tyson Fury a second time. There's a lot of rumors going around that he's going to drop back down to cruiserweight, um, which would be fine. And then it would be interesting to see who Anthony Joshua fights. But I also think that we will get to see Deontay Wilder fight one more time, and it's going to be against Anthony Joshua. It was a fight both of those cats missed out on. The greed factor, they could have both made a boatload of cash when it was hot. Deontay Wilder, his lack of skill and his one trick pony, one-dimensional style, and talent that he has or lack of has been exposed, and many people think he should hang him up, including myself. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see that fight. If we see AJ, should AJ beat Dubois, I think we will see AJ and Deontay Wilder fight in Saudi Arabia, and then we'll see Tyson Fury against AJ. And I think that fight also has no expiration date. I think even if Tyson Fury loses to Usyk in the rematch, I believe that, similar to Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder not expiring, having, no shelf life, I believe that the Tyson Fury Anthony Joshua fight is similar. I got a couple of emails to read here. This one's from my man, Coach, who, Coach, I thought Coach was going to be joining us for the Hall of Fame ceremony. And he had called me. He couldn't. His boss told him that he had to go do something else. And if he's listening, he knows which boss I'm talking about. But he was not there. But you know what? Coach, I've met you before several times. And, we've talked many times on the phone, through emails and texts. And I'm glad that you had a stand-in crew for you with Travis and Joe Smith Sr., because I loved meeting those guys. And I really wish I had more time to chat with Travis. And you can make that happen. So we should set something up where we can spend the day together or something. Or maybe even let me know when he fights in another tournament. I'd love to come and check that out. Before I read this, I'm getting a question from Lovett. She says, who are in the pictures behind you? Which pictures? I got John L. Sullivan, Mike Tyson. That fighter is an old-time fighter. I can't see. So, and then the one over here, I know by heart, is Sonny Liston landing a jab on Muhammad Ali in their fight. And then I have Rocky Marciano up there. You can't see it in the shot, but I got some shots of Rocky here. That whole side is really, this half is my studio. That whole side is my office. And there's all kinds of photos. Mickey Ward, Arturo Gotti signed. Baby Joe Macy, who I wrote my first article for ESPN magazine covering that fight. And you got Sonny Liston. You got Jack Johnson. That side of the wall, I got that famous Rocky Marciano landing the shot, the disfiguring punch on Jersey Joe. I got my sister, myself, and Joe Namath over there. Billy Costello. I got Sugar Ray Robinson fighting Jake LaMotta over there. I got Gene Tunney and Jack Dempsey in the famous long count shot. And Bobby Ches and Sugar Ray Leonard over there, and Carmen Basilio. So there's a lot, and of course, my man Tom Molyneux. So that's who's in here right this second. But anyway, my email from Coach. He says, once again, congrats on your New York State Hall of Fame induction. Thank you very much. Here's my belt. I'm having a frame similar to that one. I don't know if you can see that in the shot, but that's a glass frame. It's got a couple of pairs of trunks Joe Frazier, Joe Frazier, signed Trunk, and also Kid Gavilan, which was another great fighter. They are. I'm having a case built like that, and this will go on my wall. He says, "I'm interested in your thoughts about Raya's seasons. His Excellency Turkir Alashik holding 3 undercard bouts live at the Dubois Joshua Media workout. Cameron Vong won an 8-round decision over Joe Underwood Hughes. Chris Congo won a 6-round decision over Jacob Quinn. And Adam Hamed, Prince Hamed's son, won a 4-round decision over Santiago Carceas. What do I feel, Coach? I feel that His Excellency is the best thing to happen to boxing in the last 20 years, since Don King was in his heyday. And people don't like Don King for whatever reason because they listen to all the rhetoric. But Don King used to give us some great events, and His Excellency is doing the same thing. I'm not so sure if I'm supportive of him owning the Ring magazine or not, but you know what? This is the way boxing works. Boxing works with money. If you have money, you can write your own ticket in boxing, especially if you're a promoter or a manager or someone involved behind the scenes. I mean, you got the money, you get the people. My man. Augie's always asking me, how come you're not doing shows? How come you're not on the zone? How come you're not doing this and doing that? The reason is I'm not an ass kisser. And that's the bottom line. I call it like it is. John Muscunas was in the chat room here before. I don't know if he's still in, but we did a fight down in Florida. And one of the fighters was so upset with me, he spit water all over me. Me and Carl King. Carl looks at me. It's like, what happened, it got pretty intense. I called him we were on air. I called him a punk. I mean, what's he spitting water at me for? I'm calling a fight. I was just calling him like I saw him, but that's the way it is with me. And, Teddy Atlas was similar. I'm not comparing myself to Teddy, but Teddy is similar. I will tell you this, one of the best accolades I ever got, and somebody mentioned it to me again this past Sunday at the International Hall of Fame, was that I was told that they think I'm a modern day Bert Sugar. Now, there'll never be another Bert Sugar, right? And I had the luxury of meeting Bert. As a matter of fact, I let him use my phone one time to call his wife when we were at Madison Square Garden because he couldn't. I'm trying to remember if he didn't have a cell phone, and the phone system, we were in the media room and they had phones and you had to have some kind of code, and he was struggling with it. My man Bert and I used to enjoy a couple of scotches together, there'll never be a guy like him, the knowledge he has and everything, and his style. I miss him, but to be even mentioned was a great accolade, and I could see why people would think that. I don't have the cigar, and I wasn't the Ring magazine's editor, and I certainly don't have the pedigree that Bert Sugar had, but I do know a little about boxing, and I could carry on a conversation with most people about anything. Like I met a woman at the Hall of Fame on Sunday, and she represents some underprivileged kids in Harlem. And she was asking me if I would like to come and speak to them. She liked some of the topics I spoke about. And, I didn't realize what she wanted when she said, oh, I'm such and such from Harlem. And I started rattling off, oh, Sugar Ray Robinson. Oh, Sugar Ray's place. You ever see a picture of him with his, pink Cadillac in front? And then she came back with, yes, that's part of our Harlem tour. And we'd love to have you part of it. And they're having a chef make the favorite meals of Mike Tyson, Floyd Mayweather, and I think it was Joe Louis, Mike Tyson, and Floyd Mayweather. And the thing is Mike Tyson, I believe his was maybe a giant steak or something. Joe Louis's favorite meal was a couple of chickens, and And the guy that I care about the least, Floyd Mayweather, what's his favorite meal? Spaghetti and meatballs. I'm like, oh God, I'll probably be picking Floyd's dinner, But in any event, I didn't mean to ramble off on that. I had such a great time at the Hall of Fame. I can't tell you enough. But last but not least, and we'll pack it in. But I got an email from my man Jordan from the UK, 15-year listener. He says, "Hey Billy C, I hope all is well and you enjoyed your induction in the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame Sunday." Yes, I did. Thank you for asking. He says, "Not sure if you're aware, but Turkey has been saying that he wants to reduce pay-per-view prices down to 20 pounds and $20 worldwide. I think he said that Beterbiev and Bivol fight will be 15 pounds in the UK. Not a big change for us, but recently for a Tyson or an AJ fight have snuck up to 25 pounds. But for you guys over there, it's a massive reduction." Well, for $25 for a high profile fight like that, it would be a massive reduction. And I think what he would succeed by doing that is reducing the piracy. And I hope that that's his thinking, because quite frankly, I did not pirate the Canelo fight. I watched it the next day. But the truth of the matter is I'm not going to shell out $89 or $100 for a fight that I pretty much know the outcome to. Now, if you're telling me to spend $100 on a 50-50 major fight, like a Anthony Joshua Tyson Fury fight, should everything fall into place, I'm not going to bat an eye for that. But Canelo against Berlanga never fought anybody on the quality of, forget Canelo. He never fought anybody top quality anyway. Forget Canelo's level, there was no way. And Lara and Garcia and even Plant and McCumbee. I know Ryan Garcia said that, he's putting his money on McCumbee, but those fights, were not worth it. Okay. This weekend's fight card for $19.99 is well worth it. They're all, trust me, buy the fight, because you'll tell me in an email, Billy at talkingboxing, TALKINBOXING.com, how great that card was. Anyway, yes, I have heard that, and I hope that he does that, Jordan. And Jordan goes on to say, "Secondly, I'm questioning how Crawford will be remembered. I personally value resumes over belts. Looking at Crawford's resume, who has he fought really that you would call an elite fighter? Khan and Brook were both way past their peak. The only real names are Porter and Spence. I think it's a shame that a fighter of such quality won't be remembered in years to come by fans in the way of great back-and-forth fights, rivalries, rematches, etc. Not hating on Crawford, but I think he could have mixed it with the best in other eras. What's your thoughts?" Okay, thanks for the email. Here's my thoughts. My thoughts are, and Jordan, I love that you're following us, and I love that you've been following us for 15 years. And speaking of following, I hope you all follow us on Rumble and Twitter, or X, formerly Twitter. Join our Facebook group, Talking Boxing with Billy C. Follow us, Instagram, and like us. It might keep this show going a little longer. But look, here's the deal with Terence Crawford. I've said this a million times. First of all, and this doesn't just apply to Terence Crawford, it applies to any fighter of any era. Fighters can only fight the people that are available to them during their time fighting. People say Mike Tyson. Oh, Mike Tyson. Oh, he had easy fights. Well, he fought everybody that was in the heavyweight division at that time. You can only fight who's available. There's no woulda, coulda, shouldas, what if, I mean, we could sit here now and say that 25, 30 years later, okay, for any fighter. That's why I'm so critical of Floyd Mayweather. Yes, he's got some names on his resume, but they were, cherry picked. They were calculated risks. I respect fighters that challenge themselves. That's what I like about Terence Crawford. The other thing about Terence Crawford is that Terence Crawford was the B-side. For the first major fights that he had, he was brought in as the B-side. He looked great on paper. He was from Nebraska. He was undefeated. the promoter said, how good can this kid from Nebraska be? And they brought him on a card. He wins. They said, that was a fluke. They bring him back again, B-side, and he wins. It was a half a dozen fights besides people before people started realizing, hey, guess what? Maybe this guy is better than we think. And the rest is history. He dominated every division he's been in, except for the one he's in now, because he's only been in there for one fight. And he could only fight who's available to him, which he has. He hasn't ducked anybody. I think the problem with Terrence Crawford, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, was the fact that he stayed too long with Top Rank. Top Rank did him wrong. Top Rank did him wrong. I have nothing against Top Rank. I love Top Rank. Bob Arum has done a great job throughout the years. But with Terrence Crawford, he limited his fights. He was fighting once a year if we were lucky. He didn't even promote him as well as he should have. And as soon as Terrence Crawford could get out of the contract, he did. But he's now, look at how old he is. The problem that Terrence Crawford has right now with the people that aren't familiar with him or aren't giving him the recognition, I believe, was solely because of his promotional team of Top Rank. That's my opinion. I'm not knocking Top Rank. I just didn't think that they did a good enough job. Now, there could be stuff that was taking place behind the scenes that I didn't know anything about. Bob could have been trying to negotiate fights, and people were saying, we don't want to fight Terrence Crawford. I don't know that, but all I do know is I watched Terrence Crawford fight, and, the guy has that switch where he's a nice, God-fearing family man until the bell rings, and then he becomes this guy that will kill you in the ring. And, the truth of the matter is he's extremely talented. I, for one, think he should fight Canelo, and I think he beats Canelo. He's not knocking Canelo out. Nobody's going to knock Canelo out except Beater Beef, but he won't fight Beater Beef or some other bigger guys. But I do think that TC would beat Canelo in a decision. And I think the way that fight would be is that, and I can vision it in my head right now, I think Canelo is trying to chase him down, trying to cut the ring off, trying to plod over to him and land body shots, and TC will be outboxing him. He'll be sticking and moving, and he'll be moving around, circling around, and he'll beat him Mayweather-esque. He'll fight a Mayweather-esque type fight. People might say it's boring, but it's boring when you see a guy that's saying he's going to knock this one out, knock that one out, like Floyd Mayweather always used to say, and then he runs. But Terrence Crawford fighting a guy that much bigger. I mean, look, in the last fight that we saw him in at 154, he clearly looked smaller than his opponent. Speaking of super middleweights, which is Canelo, Jaime Munguia is fighting tomorrow night. That's another fight I'm looking forward to on ESPN. Hey, listen, I went over my time, which doesn't matter, but I appreciate you guys joining. I hope you can stop by next week. Make sure you follow us and friend us and gives us likes and all that stuff. And once again, thank you for the accolades for the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame. And I want to thank the people that elected me in there, especially Henry Haskup and Jack Hirsch, and of course Randy Gordon for getting me in. And I finally got to hang out with Randy for about 2 minutes. He didn't give me any of his time. He was a busy guy, but it's okay. We had a great time. All right, boys and girls, make sure you tune in next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, all I could say is